He's going to skip Mike. If anyone can't hear him, just raise your hand. We'll see if that works.
I have a lot of experience with Time Warner customer support, so I think you'll have no trouble hearing me. And I'll be more pleasant. What I'm here to talk about is your next deal. There's a lot of opportunities that are out there to work with entrepreneurs around the world, also working with university technologies. And I think there's some opportunities for you to look at on how to do this, how to plan, and how to get involved, and how to manage the money part of it so that you can place a number of bets at the table, as it were, and attempt to move ahead with some of these ideas. I'm going to throw some terms and some ideas at you, and I will be available afterwards for further conversations on this. So what we do with the Neutrino Donut is we get involved in technology assessments, evaluating the technologies, what the market's like, what the patent space looks like, what the research space looks like, who would be a good contact point for further development, who might be interested in licensing, and really give a feel for whether or not this technology should advance in the marketplace or even advance under a patent discussion. I deal with business development, and I also deal with marketing stuff in this area. I also do a lot of introductions, and I introduce people. The Neutrino Donut, by the way, donut stands for the direct observation of the neutrino tau, which is one of the theories of matter. When I was trying to name the company a number of years ago, technology associates, blah, 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 were all taken. And so the Higgs boson stuff and the Hadron Collider were going on, so I decided to make something as a joke between my daughter and I, because she liked neutrinos and science jokes. So back then there was a concern over the neutrino traveling faster than the speed of light, which turned out to be a wiring problem. But while that was happening, the answer, so the joke is neutrino, knock knock, who's there? So what I get involved in is the identification of opportunities. There's a lot of international and national programs going on in a lot of different countries. There are a lot of contacts who are looking to bring technologies over here, and you can deal with qualified partners, people who know what's going on in the country, who have vetted the technology, who have worked on the patent issues and a whole lot of other pieces of this, and they will be able to help qualify and get things started for you. Additionally, when you work with university and technology transfer offices, you're dealing with technology that is either patented or about to be patented and has some level of support from the university, and there are grant opportunities available for startups in these spaces, which you really need to look at. A grant is very important because it is undiluted money. So moving forward, we're going to talk about how to identify technologies and also how to develop relationships. But first, a couple of weeks ago, I sat through a presentation, and the person talked about how they, where they came from and how they got started in this whole business. And they started out by saying, people were going, what is the internet? So I'm going to take you through some of the things that I went through, and it predates that. So from the dawn of time, I used to work with these TimeNet and Telenets, which was a packet switching network. Basically, you took the phone, stuck it into this little coupler that sent signals and transmitted the information. One of the tricks they had was the moon landing, where you punched in the numbers of how much fuel, speed, distance, etc., and you tried to land a lander on the moon, and it would tell you how deep of a crater you left. So that was the beginning. I got involved in APL, which stands for, anyone?
Programming language.
Very good. So it's also known as write-only programming, because generally you can't read what you wrote 6 months later. The second piece is job control language, because back in the day you had to tell the mainframe computer that you wanted a tape drive or a computer disk mounted, or you wanted to have your cards run. And you had to have this huge box of cards that people read. And oh, by the way, one of the worst days of my life was I dropped that box. This is COBOL. It was very big for a long time, and I hated COBOL because I couldn't stand wearing polyester clothes.
Wasn't that a requirement?
Yes, it was, and the protector. So out of college, I worked at the Wharton Applied Research Center. And one of the projects was the Student Loan Marketing Association, where we talked about the effect of student loans. And apparently, massive student loans are bad for you in the long run, and we figured that out back in '79. And yes, there is a certain presidential candidate, and we don't talk about him. We went there. So my first job out of college, I worked for an engineering consulting company, and just to let you know what a great impact it had, the only image I could find was a security patch. This company is interesting because they had all these massive cost-plus arrangements to build nuclear power plants. They would sign 10-year cost-plus. It was all bodies. You build $100, you had a $100 an hour cost, you build $150. When computers came, they suddenly discovered that 5 people in a CAD system could outwork a floor full of engineers. And within 3 years, the entire company had cratered. It was an amazing thing to watch. And since I was bringing in the new technology, I had a piece of that. But it just shows you the impact of technology and how it took that company down. So then I jumped to Wang Laboratories. Wang Laboratories was founded by a guy named Dr. An Wang, who moved here from Shanghai to the YMCA in Philadelphia. He invented magnetic core memory, which is what allowed the IBM mainframe systems of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s to exist, and why we were able to go to space, because it had all this information immediately available. For a stretch, he was the largest individual stockholder in IBM, and that's how much money he made. He could have been sitting there comfortably for the rest of his great-grandchildren's lives, but he sold it all to found Wang Laboratories. Amazing belief system in himself. So he then zigged and zagged and went from different computer types and everything else like that. Finally had this whole mini computer network, and he couldn't make that last zag when the PC market came out. So that company cratered. I then jumped to Smithkline in French, which was later Smithkline and Beckman of Arnold Beckman of Beckman Instruments fame. It then became Beecham and then Glaxosmithkline. This was interesting because this was the time when information was moving from the mainframe to the PCs. And what happened was that sales data was coming down from the mainframe and being given to the individuals who were now allowed to make their own decisions, their own evaluations, which really upset the people in headquarters. The people in the field loved me because I was giving them information and changing their jobs. The people in headquarters were angry with me because it upset the process. And since I worked in headquarters, it didn't turn out well for me. So then I went to the Vanguard Group, the mutual fund company. By the way, their buildings are all named after Wilmington's fleet. As they've expanded, I'm not sure if they've had the French fleet, but anyway, they had all these mainframe systems, and they had all the individual departments running their own local area networks. When they tried to consolidate the local area networks, there was a war because the departments hated giving that up. So then I said enough, and I moved from Philadelphia to Texas, moved into sales, and I watched Dell destroy the sales channel because they undercut HP, IBM, Compaq, and everyone in the PC market. Basically, the high-end corporate customers were paying a premium for PCs and wanted to keep that way, but everything that went through the channel lost continually. And so we watched Dell destroy the market, and Dell became very rich. Then I got lucky. I went to the University of Texas and worked for the Global Commercialization Group. I also got my MBA when I was 50. I'm that old. But this group was in charge of doing entrepreneurship programs internationally. They were funded to go into different countries, and I went into Hungary, India, Korea, Vietnam, and did projects also in Mexico where we looked at 400 technologies, got rid of the first 350, did more detailed analysis, and then for the last group, we did business development and had to find investment opportunities. And development opportunities with companies. So basically they would come to me and say, here's 5 techs, here's a medical device, here's a shipping device, here's an electronic device, here's this. Go out and find opportunities for them. You have 6 months, and by the way, they're coming to town, and they want to visit the West Coast, so fill the schedule. And I had to do this from scratch, time after time after time. It was a blast, and it was very interesting to do because I figured out the secret. In closing these deals with the startup, there was one thing people need to know. And nobody understood this. I don't know why. They would come in and say, well, I've got 50 people on LinkedIn. And I said, well, I've got 3,000, and I just gave you 5 people that we're going to call. So my email address will be at the end. Send me links if you like. So then I jumped to my own company, started out with an idea, and then formed the Neutrino Donut. But one of the things we wanted to prove as a 2-person company was that we had a global network of entrepreneurs that we could tap into for opportunities. And we ran a program called the 24 Hours of Technology. And what that was is that we ran from 8 p.m. to 8 p.m. in Austin, but we started in the morning in Australia, and we chased the sun 55 speakers. We recorded the presentations. We recorded the PDF. We kept the PDF files. And we had people talking about entrepreneurship for 24 straight hours. It was an amazing event. We had very low attendance and very low participation during the event, but for the months and months afterwards, it was pounded by people who wanted to see different things. What's going on in Latvia? What's going on here? What's going on in Australia? What's going on in India? What's going on in Africa? We had speakers everywhere. And I also did other projects. I got to go to the Ukraine. I worked in Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, India, and the UK. Sorry, that's what the flag was. But I mean, these are all the entrepreneurship programs, doing assessments, evaluating the technologies. Where could they go? Where were the opportunities? And then another reboot. I came out to the University of California, Irvine, and worked for the tech transfer office. And basically, I was the sales guy for the tech transfer office, going through all the different technologies, trying to find relationships, trying to find licensing and research opportunities. And that brings us up to date. It's around 8:30 in the morning on the 29th, and here we are. So let's talk about you, because that's why we're here. It's you, it's not me. How to take text to the world. There's global relationships available with universities and also with different startups and economic development groups throughout the world, and you really need to look at these for opportunities. Sitting around and saying, I've got friends and we came up with an idea is one thing. Being able to say, I'm working with a group of entrepreneurs in Kazakhstan, in India, in anywhere in the world that trying to bring their stuff in here actually gets a lot more attention, and you're going to find that there's a lot of support groups available that will assist you, because free help is free help, and attaching to someone else's network is a great thing. You can do the same thing with university technologies, and I'll talk about how to engage with the university, look over the tech transfer opportunities, and decide what might be of interest. The book I always recommend reading is Sun Tzu and the Art of War, not because I view business as war, but because it talks a lot about planning and trying to define markets and trying to find where you are. So if you're looking for a guide on how to proceed, Sun Tzu and the Art of War. So the first stage is people are going to say, here's a whole bunch of technologies. How do you look over a large number of technologies? Because when you're dealing with different countries and you're dealing with universities, you're going to say, well, we've got 300, what do you think? The important thing to know in the beginning is you're looking for losers. Because after you're done looking for losers, the things that are left are the things you want to work with. It's quite honestly, it's when you're looking at 400 technologies, you want to eliminate 350 and think about 50. You don't want to make a decision on each and every one. So first off, you have to understand, where's your expertise? What do you know? What do you need to know? What is your expertise? You know, where can you bring to the table? If you're a CEO type, you need a science person. Maybe you need a business development person. But you know your role and you know what part is of need. As you're looking through the text that you do know, if the IP is no good, you want to walk away from it. If it's just a commodity or sales and marketing, it may be a bad idea. People don't think through the selling process. I mean, I've dealt with people who says, well, I want to sell to every school district in the country. And then I say, well, do you understand what it takes to sell to a school district, let alone all of them? And you know, that sinks in, and they have to change the business model to start looking at distribution opportunities. But I mean, you really start breaking these things down for people and understanding where the challenges are. And also, bad ideas are still bad ideas. As a side note, my favorite bad idea was and I hope they're not here because it was in LA a year ago. They wanted to set up a timer for your phone so people who have an upcoming event of some sort can count down the months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, and seconds to the event, and they wanted to sell to brides and pregnant women. And he just was like, no, please stop. So the trick is finding the losers. An important concept to remember in all this is things that you don't know anything about is a loser. Because just because it looks like it might cure cancer, if you don't know how to handle it, it's a loser. You can't do anything about it. So if it's outside your area or it doesn't look good, it's a loser. And it doesn't mean it's a terrible idea, it's just you can't do anything with it. So the winners are the ones which are left. You go through 400 texts and there's a bunch left over and you say, these are the ones I want to spend some time thinking about. And that's the first step, is finding the things you want to focus on. By the way, we consult in this area, just saying. But this is the area where you want to do a deeper investigation of, is this a valid idea? Is this an interesting technology? You know, what can I do with this? But eliminate the losers and you have a small group of winners. So the people that you're dealing with don't have money in their pockets. They do have access to money. They do have access to support services. And they do have, and you, if you're working with some of these people, have access to ideas that have pedigree. It's one thing to say, I have an idea. It's another thing to say, I'm working with this university on this technology. And I'm working with this university on this technology opens more doors. International partnerships come from a lot of different spaces. National, international programs. The U.S. Commercial Service is a great resource, and they are everywhere. Honorary consulates are also of interest. I've got a friend who's an honorary consulate of France, and she's stopping out to visit tomorrow, and she's working with a whole lot of entrepreneurs that are in France that are trying to come to the United States. CRDF is a State Department program. They ship people around the world, but they also run a lot of these programs. UT Austin sending people out there for women entrepreneurs, setting up in India. LARDA is here in Los Angeles, and the bottom line is this is LA. Everybody's here. There's a lot of opportunities to work internationally. University technologies is a different area. You can go into the university, and if you identify technologies that's of interest to you, you can sign up for an option for the technology. What that gives you is the ability to control the technology, and for the most part, universities are measured on certain metrics. Licensing opportunities or options are one metric, and working with startups is a second metric, and they are interested in working with people that want to take the technology forward. You can do an option of the technology, you can shop it around to try to find opportunities to license it, to develop a product, to deal with grant opportunities. There's a whole lot you can do. The option is not that expensive. Later on, when it's turning into money and you need, to do things on a larger scale, then you're going to negotiate a licensing deal. But it's not that difficult to get into the option part of it. You need to understand what's the difference between a provisional patent, which is a one-year patent, which is fairly inexpensive, which universities do very casually, versus making the decision to do a full patent. And if you deal with something that's got a provisional patent on it and you're showing activity, they will probably want you to do a full patent. The key term in all this is the exclusive right to negotiate. You don't get involved in being able to match anyone else's offers. You want to be the only person at the table. So exclusive right to negotiate is a key term in all this. And the next thing we're going to talk about is SBIR. Small Business Innovation Research Program is a huge, huge thing. For those of you who don't know what it is, basically industries put aside a certain amount of money to help startups. There are a ton of grants in this space. If you're working with a university technology, you increase your odds from 30% to even greater in winning an SBIR grant. SBIR grants can also be used to pay salary based on certain guidelines. The first round of SBIR is up to 100. The next round of SBIR can get $1 million. Joe Nadowski, who's sitting back there. Joe, I've been working with Joe with UC Irvine. He's got an option on a water technology out of UC Irvine, and has gotten phase 1 and has applied for phase 2 grants. He's also been part of a few other programs like IC2. It is. You'll also find that the university will support the grant process, which means they will help you identify it, help you with making sure that it's done correctly, because some of that grant money will go back to the university to help in the research. Large corporations hate dealing with these universities. They want to deal with startups. Startups with income and cash flow are of interest for acquisition or business. Some of these larger organizations will want to buy from you so you have enough of a track record, expand to more companies, and then they will buy you out. But SBIR is a grant. It's undiluted capital. The SBIR program also does things like I-Corps, where you'll get together and they will help you with the commercialization process. These are all free things to you. These are all free things to you. They will help you get started. This is a networking thing. This is a business development thing. Because universities are eager to work with startups. You will also tap into the university network because they know people who would be interested in the technology. They will connect you. You've got a pedigree to technology here. Calling someone up and saying, hi, I'm a startup working with the UCLA technology will actually get you a lot further along than if you say, me and my friends have an idea. It's quite seriously, it's a really huge part of this is because you can tap into the UCLA network. It's not up there with, hi, I'm Tiger Woods, I'm going to buy you a drink, but it's up there. So this gives you pedigree. This gives you an opportunity to walk in the door with something more serious and that will get more attention out of people to advance the technology. There's a couple of places around, companies that are around that are constantly turning over. They will get the technology to a point, proof of concept stage, license it out, and move on. Proof of concept, license it on. They're not reviewing things as this is a 6-year process to get this thing to the marketplace. They're looking at it as we're going to get started, we're going to get set up, and then we're licensing it and going back to the table with another bet. So the bottom line is it's the IP. If you get solid IP, you've got something that people may want to acquire and they will want to work with you. It's a really important part of this because solid IP, especially when it's paid for by somebody else, paid for by the startups internationally, paid for by the universities, you've got something solid there. And you coming up with IP is one thing, but you coming in and saying, I've got university IP, that's close to being bulletproof. Because if you want to screw with university IP, you're taking the regents of the University of California to court, and they have some serious deep pockets. So, some of the projects that we've done recently with the donors, we work with dried blood systems, wellness systems for PTSD, biosensors. I'm working with a guy whose the sensor is basically reading sodium and chloride and other areas, and also for alcohol in your system. But the sensors are feeding off into your smartphone. The interesting thing about all these things with sensors, and you can see more and more about these with wearables, is that the money is not in the sensor, the money is in the data. Runners are social media people in a really, really huge way. They love sharing information. They want to keep everyone up to date about where they are, how much they're sweating, and everything. And the data is huge. If you look at what Under Armour's done recently, they bought out a whole bunch of stuff. Multi-batteries, homeland security systems, which you and I talked about. Thermoluminescent lighting systems, biopolymers, skin lotions. I've been working with a company out of Czech Republic, or Czechia, as it's also known, trying to do licensing in this space. Diabetic socks that will track your diabetes as your feet, and a bunch of Indian and Korean startups. So that's who we are, and these are the kinds of things that are out there. I'm available for questions now. I'm also going to be hanging out afterwards for further questions, and turn it over to you.
Thanks so much. That was informative and entertaining. Great jokes. I think that's great, actually. I just want to piggyback off that idea of working with universities. I actually was fortunate to get advice like this about a year ago from another presenter that suggested that I reach out to my alumni. I'm a University of Southern California graduate, and I'm now working with the software engineering program with Sbir. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And they're actually developing my app for free. So it's possible. It's possible. Contact the administrators with your respective universities and find out what's available. A lot of times these schools may have programs that are designed to help students work on passion projects for entrepreneurs that have already graduated from that university. So it's totally possible. Check it out. We're going to open up to Q&A right now, and the way that this is going to work today, just so we can hear your question and get it answered properly, is we're just going to form a queue. I think that's already been done. Is there a queue of, no, okay. Well, anyway.
I can repeat the question.
Oh, well, I think we're going to try this format. Yeah? Okay, so if you have a question, form a queue, and then we'll just have you line up, and you can ask the question on the mic, and then you can answer it by shouting if you like. Okay. So,
I don't have one.
you do? Okay, well then,
Yeah, can I just
come this,
Okay.
I guess this place.
Hey Earle, that was amazing. It was really nice to hear. So the question I have is, you were talking about the right to negotiate, right? So that was like a really major factor that you want the people who have the ideas to be able to have.
Yes.
And then you were talking about the SBIRs, so you get these grants, this funding, and now you're connected to a university. And so how have you seen that relationship work? Because let's say it's my idea, I want to come in and now I'm connected to a university. So now whose idea is that, like how exactly does that work usually?
Well, the process I'm suggesting here is that you take a university idea, not your idea.
Ah, okay.
So you're going to take the university technology, and then because the university technology has the patent that's in place, and you're getting an option to work with the university technology that's been patented.
Okay.
And that's what you're going to use to go get the grant, and that's what you get the support of the university on in trying to get the grant. And to echo what he said regarding alumni, a lot of universities have figured out that the one way to involve the alumni is to ask them to support university startups and entrepreneurships because they love doing that. So if there's an expert in material sciences sitting out there and you're working with material sciences technology, they may want to get involved to support it out of the goodness of their heart, which is free expertise and free connections. But to your question, I'm talking about working with the university technology, not your idea.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll just stand here because I'm betting everybody can hear me. So, really good points. What are the most counterintuitive ideas or observations that throughout your career that would not be obvious to someone starting this process for the first time?
Could you repeat the question? When I'm listening to a presentation and the first thing they say is, we're the only ones who understand this problem and we're the only people who've ever thought of a solution to it. Right. That's when I start reading email. Right. Generally, but for the more serious things that aren't way out there, generally you start looking at the process and say, who else is on the market? What is the process of getting it out there is really the one that people get stuck on. Have you talked to potential customers? One person was talking about they want to put children's grades online. And I said, it's a great idea. My son's graduating from college and he's had that since 5th grade. Tell me more. So I mean, but what we did was we took things like that, and also people want to sell school districts and saying, why don't you focus on the homeschooling market? Because that's a different distribution opportunity. That's an easier group of people to connect with. So I mean, you start redirecting people and saying, this might be a better process. Or look at Pearson or ETS as a major player that might want to include what you want to do into their systems. But most of the issues is process. The second issue is ongoing revenue, because if they're designing a model that has ongoing revenue, it's a serious challenge, because if they say, I'm just going to sell it once and then I'm done, you don't get the ongoing money. For what you're trying to do with working with startups, if you create a product that has a ongoing monthly fee that says you're taking care of things, you'll be in better position than if you're constantly dealing with, I'll only call you with a problem. But I mean, that's where you create the ongoing revenue. But ongoing revenue, understanding the distribution of the product, and understanding who your competitors are probably the three challenges for people who have a legitimate idea.
Right. So just to summarize so everybody understands, really what you're describing is understanding the market, the players in the market, and how you actually fit in.
Right.
That was the point I wanted you to emphasize, was that it's really a marketing problem, it's not a technology problem.
Correct. Yes.
So if you're, and maybe
Can you stand up so we can hear you a little bit better? Thank you.
if you're looking for these university technology opportunities, what are some, like where could I go to sift through all of these different opportunities and pick out 300 that I'm then going to narrow down to 50?
It's all online. If you go to the university and look up the tech transfer office, they usually put everything they have online. I would look for the most recent things. And for example, the UCI system, there's a numbering system. And if you're in the 23,000, 24,000, that's the more recent. The second thing is if you sit down and go into the tech transfer office, you'll find the things that have not been released for which you're about to do disclosures on, which are also more interesting. Things that are 3 or 4 years old in the engineering and IT space are of very limited value. Things that are very, very recent are of greater value. If you know medical devices and medical pharmaceuticals, older things are better because they've been tested on people. But older IT and older engineering stuff, they don't work.
Follow up on that.
Yeah.
How competitive is that? Am I going to walk into like a tech transfer office and there's going to be 15 people all trying to look at these technologies and I got to get in line right behind them?
No. They are eager to talk to you. I can tell you that their university tech transfer offices are often, there was an article in the LA Times about 4 or 5 months ago that listed the tech transfer revenue from all the UCs. And if you went down that list, you discovered that there were several home runs. And if you take away the home runs, the revenue was weaker and the opportunities were smaller. So they're eager to talk to people. Some of these schools are upside down. Some of them have 4 or 5 things that are making them get zooks of money, and they don't have much other areas. So no, you will be welcome there. You will be welcome to talk about process, startups, the whole bit. But all this stuff is online. and you just want to get in that space. If you get in there, you can talk to the professor. You can also find out what research they're doing and how interesting the research is, and go from there. Okay. She's standing in line.
Mike? Okay, I'll just project. I'm Sophie. Nice to meet you. My question is, you know, my entertainment's in my background is in entertainment, so you have all these screenwriters who are like, I have this great script idea that I'm going to tell no one, so no one takes it. So in thinking about collaboration, a lot of times people don't want to collaborate because we don't want anyone to take our idea. And, you know, 100% of nothing is nothing.
Yeah.
So kind of like what you're saying is, you know, find collaboration partners so that you can have 50% of something awesome. So I guess what I need help understanding more is, okay, find these SBIR partners, but then what does that dynamic look like? And do you have an example that can help us see, like, through, you know, this university and through this entrepreneur, this is how they came together, this is the ownership each had, and this is how they emerged out of it.
Joe, would you like to hand it up then?
So I licensed, I went to UC Irvine a few years back. My undergrad was engineering, and I heard a business plan competition in engineering, and thought it sounded interesting. So I actually went to the technology transfer office, found out that all the students who actually worked on it all had their real jobs, and pay off their student loans, and this technology was open for licensing, so I signed an option, or signed a letter at this time. But the thing is, it all depends on what the technology is. If it's kind of, if it's like something really promising, there's probably some big companies that are already there. Yeah, also, the big companies are, what they do is they do sponsored research and they own the IP. Or they hire consultants, so they control that. So in this case, so I licensed it, and then eventually, because it was working at the time, we submitted to the National Science Foundation. So all you have to do is go to sbir.gov, and there's like 18 agencies that actually have it, and they all did open solicitations. So then, you know, all I do is I keep signing into an agreement with the university. Because this is going to take time. This is going to take probably like 5-6 years to actually get from an idea to actually on the project. You know, so like right now we still don't actually know what that is. So, but the thing is, when you do an SBIR, it actually there is a publishable subject line.
The SBIRs are generally vague, so particularly water technology. You apply for that.
And so there's a small there's an abstract that's published, so like the whole world knows what you're doing. And so like, I mean, I have like interest from like big players, so I'm in the environmental engineering, services space. So like there's big companies that know what we're doing. But the thing is, they don't want to invest the time or their resources to do this. So they're just watching to see what comes out of us. They may end up becoming a strategic partner and investing in us as we prove our, get some milestones. But then hopefully they're going to buy us in 6 years. That's the idea. But because in the whole government, SBIR is all about scientific risk. So like when I first started out, I go talk to like an angel group or VC. I can't even promise you. I would give you back the capital, let alone the return on the capital. So that's what the government does. The government money is like basically, you know, so I'm going for my phase 2. I now have my customers, and I have people that are demonstration partners that are actually bring up money to test it out. So you don't have like some sort of commercial potential to it. So phase 1 is kind of a feasibility. And then phase 2 is, you know, does someone care? Is someone going to buy it? So like when the government gives me, you know, $700,000 of your taxpayers' dollars, and eventually, you know, it's all about creating jobs, and it's really about creating barriers to development. That's why governments have to do it. But the thing is that no one would do this because no one's going to, no company would, you know, bet $700,000 over 2 years for something that they may not work. They're looking for
Listen, and thank you very much for a very inspiring presentation. So I'd like to talk to you about design. So if I understand you right, the most important thing is basically matching your knowledge of the market and technology with opportunity at the tech office or the university office, and you being able to implement that. And then you having a proper process that can actually walk through, basically activate users or non-users, and then has to be able to make a lot of revenue in the end. So those are kind of like the main decision-making points. How does design play into this? How important is design for the process for them supporting you?
The design?
Yeah, the industrial design or web design.
It would depend. A lot of these things, the question was, how does the design figure into this process? The initial thing, depending on what the technology is, you're dealing with more on the pure science of it. The putting together the packaged product is a later on part of the process. And for some people, they're going to bail before that. For some people, they're going to try to turn it into a product, and there will be design issues with that at that stage. But it just really depends on how far down the road you're trying to do. With what Joe's doing with water technology, at some point people might pull out, and he can get out of it as saying this test works, as opposed to here's the copy, here's the test, we're going to sell you this much money.
So they're okay with design coming in very late in the stage instead of up front?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, one more question. So very often when you're talking with investigators or researchers, they're sort of focused on the technology and they're kind of navel-gazing in a sense. And what you're really trying to do is commercialize it and find a home in the real world.
Yes.
So can you provide any advice in terms of sort of like interview questions or prospecting techniques that you found successful when you're talking with scientists and trying to connect their know-how to the real world?
You really want the scientists around to provide the pedigree, as it were, and part of the grant process is that money will go to them. And what you want to do is get the feedback from the external partners saying, you know what, if your technology can prove this, then it's of greater interest. So your grant is going to be focused on that and getting them to spend the grant money steering their research toward that product base. So in questioning them, you want to really find out how easy it is to work with them, how interested they are. Some people don't care. Tenured professors that are old don't care. Associate professors are trying to make money and make a name for themselves, they do care. So it's more of, A, are they going to cooperate? Are they interested in cooperating, or are they basically, you should take it elsewhere?
Do you have any advice for how to assess that? Because typically what happens is you invest a lot of time, and I've done this in Caltech, spending 3, 6, 9 months with somebody, and they assume you're saying the same thing, the right things, and then eventually gets to a point where you're ready to pull, you really have to pull the trigger, and then you keep waiting, they won't move, and I keep looking for, ways to sort of say, how do I identify the person's real personality and tendencies sooner? So
Well, if you get the license on the technology, it's yours to do with as you see fit. What will get their interest is if they're interested in grant money. Professors react to grant money above all, because if they can add another grad student, they're all in favor of it. So what's going to be of interest to them is that piece coming back. Under the UC system, for every dollar that comes in, 1/3 is split among the inventors, 17% goes to the individual department, I believe, or the school, and then the other 50% either goes to overall research or to specific groups there. So the professor is splitting part of a third, or all of it, they're keeping the third, but that's not a big moneymaker to them, and that's not of interest. What is of interest is in the grant process for them to say, I just got you an SBIR phase 2 grant or a phase 1 grant, and I got $30,000 for you to answer this question, and then they will pay attention to it. But some people are friendly, some people aren't. Generally, as a rule of thumb, professors hate the tech transfer office, and the tech transfer office hates the professors. So, you will hear that speech no matter what.
How about one last question?
One last question? Yes?
Maybe just a comment. I worked at a different university tech transfer place for a while.
Which one?
Never mind. But I think an observation is that the most successful things I saw from a small business was someone who walked in with a business idea, not necessarily money, but walk in with a business idea with the technology to shape the whole, will take it seriously. I think if you go in for just a fishing expedition with no money, you'll be taken less seriously if you go in with here I have this kind of general idea, and I have some ideas that some of your people might fit that, because then there might be some other path that they'll go do that they said, it's not worth it because there's no market for it. So like anything else, try to have an idea first, and with respect to the speaker, and if there's vague opinions in tech transfer, it's as vague opinions as there are tech transfer people, I suspect, but that's been my experience.
Yeah, one last thing on that. A lot of times the university professors prefer giving the technology to the grad students to drive to as a startup, and they want to push that. But the good news for you is that they really don't have that much experience in business, and to have a business person come in and help guide them would be of interest. And then adding to your experience, every tech transfer office is fighting among themselves, all of them everywhere. Caltech has a different problem. Caltech has the head of Boeing flying in saying, what do you got? Which is not a problem anyone else has. So, any other questions? I'm here for further discussions or anything else like that.